Over the last 5 years, the number of satellites orbiting Earth has more than doubled. And it's expected to double again very soon, thanks mostly to private companies like SpaceX. While these satellites offer important benefits, they're also causing problems scientists are only just starting to understand. So, how many satellites might we see up there in the coming decades? And maybe more importantly, just how many is too many? As of May 2025, there are about 11,700 active satellites circling our planet. These range from military and scientific satellites to rapidly growing private networks. But the speed at which new spacecraft are being launched is increasing every single year. The biggest reason for this trend is SpaceX's Starlink network. It currently has around 7,500 active satellites in orbit, making up over 60% of the total operational spacecraft. All of these have been launched just since May of 2019. But other companies are also starting to build their own massive groups of satellites, called megaconstellations. This includes Amazon's Project Kuiper and China's Thousand Sails constellation plan. Putting new satellites into space is also getting easier because rockets are now reusable. For example, SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket is launching satellites for many different companies. Other companies are even exploring crazy ideas like shooting hundreds of satellites into space at once using a giant spinning cannon. All this activity has researchers wondering how many satellites could eventually be orbiting our planet. And they're trying to figure out what issues this huge number might cause. Experts say these megaconstellations plan to cover most of Earth's surface with their signals. But there's still a lot of uncertainty about exactly how large they will get and how much damage they could cause. Trying to guess how many satellites will be launched in the future is tricky. Satellite companies often change their plans as they develop their systems. Many proposed satellite systems will never actually be launched, but many others certainly will be. Proposals for over 1 million private satellites from nearly 300 different megaconstellations have been submitted internationally. However, some of these massive proposals, like one for over 300,000 satellites from Rwanda, are unlikely to ever happen. Even though the proposed numbers seem huge, most private satellites have pretty short lives. For example, the average Starlink satellite works for about 5 years before it falls back to Earth. As they re-enter our atmosphere, most of these satellites burn up. So even if 1 million satellites were launched, they wouldn't all be in orbit at the exact same time. While predicting the exact future number is hard, researchers have estimated a maximum limit for satellites in low Earth orbit. This is the area of space up to about 1,200 miles above Earth where most private satellites operate. Experts believe this carrying capacity for low Earth orbit is around 100,000 active satellites. Above this number, satellites would likely start constantly crashing into each other. Once this limit is reached, new satellites would likely only be launched to replace old ones that have finished their operational lives. It's not totally clear exactly when this carrying capacity will be reached. But based on the current pace of launches, several experts think it could happen before the year 2050. Given this expected rise in satellite numbers, researchers are working hard to identify the potential problems they could create. One major issue is space junk, which includes old rocket parts and dead satellites floating in low Earth orbit. If pieces of space junk collide, it can create thousands of smaller pieces of debris. This increases the risk of even more collisions, creating a dangerous chain reaction. If this isn't stopped, it could eventually make low Earth orbit practically unusable. Scientists call this problem the Kessler Syndrome and are warning that it needs to be addressed now. Megaconstellations also threaten to severely limit astronomy done from the ground here on Earth. First, sunlight reflecting off the satellites can interfere with optical telescopes. They can basically photobomb the telescopes as they pass overhead during observations. Second, radio signals that accidentally leak from communication satellites can interfere with radio astronomy. These stray signals can obscure the faint radio waves coming from distant objects like galaxies. Some experts fear that if the carrying capacity of 100,000 satellites is reached, some types of radio astronomy could become completely impossible. Satellites can also impact the environment. This includes greenhouse gases emitted during rocket launches. There's also metal pollution building up in the upper atmosphere as old satellites burn up upon reentry. Considering all these potential negative impacts, most researchers are calling for companies to slow down their launch rates. One expert said a full stop on launches wouldn't work, but slowing things down would be wise. This would give us time to develop better international rules before putting 100,000 satellites into orbit. But do we actually need 100,000 satellites in the first place? While private satellites help monitor Earth and provide internet to remote areas, many experts question if these benefits outweigh the potential risks. Others are more skeptical, wondering if some payloads are truly beneficial or just ways for companies to make money. They ask if we really need another small satellite just for taking selfies from space. And they question whether connecting remote communities to the internet truly solves deeper issues of inequality and poverty. Many of the claimed benefits could likely be achieved with far fewer satellites. The proposed numbers are so high mainly because many different companies are competing to provide the same services. One astronomer suggested it would be better for companies to cooperate more to reduce the total number of satellites needed. But he added that this seems highly unlikely given the current global situation. If you like what you see, hit that like button and subscribe for more.